not prominent, but he was approachable and faithful. First, let's talk a little about Andrew's life. His brother is Simon Peter, and he is the son of Jonah, also known as John. His native city is Bethsaida, but he lived with Simon in Capernaum, where Jesus called them fishers of men. Now we will talk about why Andrew is not prominent. The word prominent means someone important or well known. There's very little mention in the scriptures about Andrew, so that helps us to appreciate that he wasn't one of the more prominent apostles. But even though he wasn't prominent, he was still considered as one of the first 4 apostles. What a privilege indeed. How was Andrew approachable? Well, let's turn our Bibles to Matthew chapter 4, 18 through 19. And that reads, "Walking alongside the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, who was called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, 'Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men.'" Did you see how easy it was for Jesus to approach Andrew? Yes. Jesus saw something inside Andrew that made him want to approach him and ask him to become his follower. As you can see, being approachable was a benefit for Andrew. So far, we talked about how Andrew was not prominent, but he was approachable and faithful. Now let's talk about his faith. Did he have strong faith? In the fall of 29 CE, Andrew heard John the Baptizer introduce Jesus as the Lamb of God. In John 1, 36-41, talks about how Andrew followed Jesus to his residence, stayed with him for that day, and was soon convinced that he had found the Messiah. And when he found his brother Simon, he said to him, "We have found the Messiah," and led him to Jesus. Did you notice Andrew's strong faith? Now, let's turn back to Matthew chapter 4, but this time, let's look at verse 20. And that says, "At once they abandoned their nets and followed him." That takes strong faith for Andrew in order to abandon his entire career as a fisherman to immediately follow Jesus. Finally, at Mark 13, 3-4, we see another example of Andrew's strong faith. Let's turn there. And that reads, as he was sitting on the Mount of Olives with the temple in view, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, Tell us when will these things be, and what will be the sign when all these things are to come to a conclusion?" Here, Andrew is one of the 4 disciples on the Mount of Olives, asking Jesus for the sign that would mark the conclusion of the system of things. That is something we are all concerned with to this very day. In conclusion, what can we learn from Andrew? Well, we can learn that Jehovah doesn't look at man's prominence for him to be acceptable to Jehovah. However, as long as we are approachable and have strong faith like Andrew, we will be able to take part in the historic work now of helping vindicate Jehovah's name by means of the ministry and sacred service.
Robert, that was an excellent talk. Wow. And we appreciate that. This is what makes it worthwhile with your children when you see something like that. So there were a lot of good things in your talk, Robert. We like the way you tied it all together when you said in conclusion. And you mentioned that he was approachable, he had strong faith. And some other things that made it a well-rounded talk. And we didn't see any signs of nervousness. He was very composed. And so we look forward to your next number 3 talk. So we're not in competition with one another, but this should be an inspiration to all of us, young and old, that to give Jehovah our best. Okay, friends, this is gonna end our school, the new schedule